What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Glad to have you back again for another episode of the ARK Sports Podcast with Hussein Mahmoud. Today's guest, I'm very excited to have today's guest. If you're into Ottawa basketball, you're going to know who I'm talking about. He's been all over social media with collabs with, Under Armour, Gillette, NBA, NFL, Canada. He's a coach. He has his own team. Also has a media company. I mean, he's all over. So if you're on Instagram, you know who I'm talking about. So super excited to have our guest today. I hope that intro does you justice. Jamil Abiad.
Hey, how are you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, I mean, the whole reason why I'm doing these episodes is basically to highlight local athletes, in your case, who went professional, and just highlighting their stories, talking about the struggles they went through to get where they did, and just what they have to give back. In your case, you've given a lot back to the community. So I'm super excited to have you today, man. So
no, thanks for having me. Looking forward to our talk.
Appreciate it. And I think we're gonna learn a lot about yourself. I know you've done other episodes, but I think we're gonna learn a lot about yourself, your journey, and what you have to give and what you have to offer, right? So let's get into it, man. Tell me a little bit about your childhood, your family. Let's learn about Jamil.
Yeah, so I mean, I was born in Windsor, Ontario. I come from a family of 6. I have 3 younger brothers. Crazy thing is we're all 1 year apart. No one ever believes it.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. But growing up, it made it very fun. The fact that we were all super close in age. I mean, we did everything together from playing sports. I'm the oldest, yeah. Okay. So from playing sports to any activity, it was pretty much always the 4 of us together. And, I mean, it left an empty fridge, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it was great growing up. I mean, the 4 of us, like I said, did everything together. We moved to Ottawa here in 1999.
Okay.
And soon after that, I never played really sports in Windsor. Okay. It's only when I moved to Ottawa that I started getting into sports. I mean, we kicked the ball around for fun and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can imagine 4 boys. You're gonna play something, right?
Yeah, we were always outside. Whatever it was, we made up our own games, random stuff, bike around, just whatever it was. But it's not until I moved to Ottawa that I got into kind of a structure and organized sports.
So how old were you when you started playing, I guess, whether it's...
So I started soccer. Soccer is like, it was a gift that I had. Okay. It was definitely something I probably should have continued doing. But I mean, obviously I'll get into the whole basketball stuff a little later on. But I met my best friend at the time in grade 5 at Common Glen Public School. And we moved to Ottawa. And I got to the schools in February, so it was almost like the end of the year.
Okay.
And they always used to play this one class versus another class soccer game at lunchtime. And for the first, week, like, you're just trying to, like, make friends. You don't know who's who. And I met this one guy, and he's like, yo, do you play soccer? And I was like, I mean, yeah, but I never really played, like, organized. So they got me to play, and it was always, like, this class versus this class. And once he saw how good I was at soccer, he's like, hey, my dad actually is a coach of my house league team. Okay. Have you ever thought of playing? And I was like, oh, I'm not sure. I'll ask my mom. And this kind of went on for a few months until end of school. We had our graduation. And finally, his dad met my mom at our graduation. And he said, my son keeps saying that your son's a very good soccer player. Could you want to bring him out?
Nice.
And at the time, like, we didn't know anybody in Ottawa. We're still trying to get familiarized. My parents are separated at this time. It wasn't like too long after.
So you have a unique background. I mean, you have mixed parents. So you don't hear it very often. So tell us about your background and
the
your
dynamic.
Parents.
Yeah, well, my mom is from Ghana in West Africa. My dad is from Lebanon. They met in Ghana when my dad was doing a lot of kind of exporting. With him and his brothers, they had a little company that they were working on, and they met in Ghana. And it was soon after that they kind of immigrated here to Canada.
Nice. So you get the best of both cultures. I can imagine the food on
amazing.
both sides is going to be very nice.
No complaints.
And I can imagine the competitive juices from both sides are
complaints,
definitely going to be.
For sure.
So that's awesome. So did you end up playing soccer with your friends?
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
So my mom ended up saying yes. She's kind of like a little nervous. She's by herself. We're in a new city. She has 4 young boys. So kind of it was a lot for her at the time, between work, getting us to school, and just a bunch of stuff. So my best friend at the time, Chris, his dad's like, you don't have to worry about rides, nothing like that. We'll pick him up, we'll drop him off.
Oh, that's perfect.
So that was kind of like a big relief for my mom. So we go to our first game, but mind you, his team at the time, well, my team, I guess, that I joined, last place.
So hold on, your mom didn't force your younger brother to join the team either?
No. They ended up playing soccer like a year or two after me, but like for different teams and stuff like that. But they're dead last. I joined this team. No one knows what to expect. My friend Chris keeps telling his dad at the time, like, he could play.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get familiarized with the team, everybody else. I scored 5 goals in our first game. We win the game 6-1.
So they get you right.
So right away it was like phone's always ringing. Is Jameel coming to practice? Does he need a ride? Coming to games? Whatever. We win the league. Go back to second year, we win the league, and then now parents are starting to talk to my mom like, we think your son's very talented. Like he shouldn't be playing house league anymore. He needs to play competitive soccer or something else.
So you haven't been introduced to basketball at this point?
Nothing.
Just only
soccer.
Okay.
Soccer.
Soccer is a good sport.
Yeah, no, for sure.
To play because number one, teamwork, number one, footwork. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of skills that can really translate into other sports. And I think a lot of guys, especially in Ottawa, that play basketball have a soccer background.
No, for sure. You see it all the time. Like even like the pros that are now, like most of them are dual sport athletes.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things do translate over. And the good thing about soccer, I mean, is footwork and like you said, the teamwork stuff, like, give and go and moving without the ball, getting to open space, all that kind of stuff translates over to basketball. But I mean, obviously using your feet and not your hands, right? No, so I played basketball for fun, like just recess and stuff like that at school, but I was never really introduced to it until grade 7, 8. We got a babysitter, and he played basketball. He's actually here in the Ottawa community. Merrick Palmer runs Capital Courts Training Center. So he was kind of a mentor for me growing up till I got to, end of high school, university. But he played professionally. He played basketball and stuff like that. So he'd take us outside. We'd go shoot around and stuff like that. And then he started bringing me to the YMCA to play. And then he started trying to like help me correct my shot and do some other stuff. And then I started to kind of like basketball because it was something new.
Yeah. And
it was something that was different.
And what was your size like? I mean, for the normal guys, we're normal height, right? Mm-hmm. But for basketball wise,
No, we're small.
We're small.
We're small.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, it was like soccer came to me naturally, came to me easy. And at the time, soccer wasn't what it is now. The opportunities were not the same. I know Fury was just starting when I was younger. I was always getting called up to play.
And social media was non-existent.
Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
So I was always getting called up to play for the top team. We had regional at Hornets, and then we had Fury, which was before the Fury professional team came.
Yeah.
So I was getting called up to go and play and stuff like that. And it was really hard because they'd be traveling every week. My mom couldn't. A, it was too much money for our family. And then B, the travel was just too much. So I kind of gave up on that stuff just because I wasn't able to probably fulfill it to the way that I wanted. But basketball, it was like brand new. I knew I wasn't there yet. And people kept telling me like, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it.
So it's a bit of a challenge.
So I think that motivation kind of was like, watch, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So I spent hours and hours and hours and hours on it. And grade 9, I made the high school team. And I was okay. I didn't play that much. I was okay. But that summer, transitioning from grade 9 to grade 10 is when the light bulb went off.
Yeah, and
that's when basketball
that's when it clicks, right? When you start getting that confidence. I mean, I still remember my first time playing basketball. I literally picked up a ball and shot it, and I scored. And I was just like, man, this is amazing. And I had an older brother that kind of was into it too, so it made things easy. But when you're good at a sport and you're getting the attention and you get that confidence, man, it's just like it's like you hit that nitrous in a car and you're going. So talk about, you went to Colonel By,
yep.
We talked a little bit before, but you had a really good team. So let's talk about your team in Colonel By. What were the coaches like, and kind of how, I know you said you started clicking and understanding that you were going to be good, but when did you kind of realize that you can make it to the next level? Because I know a lot of people think that going to play college, you're in grade 9, I'm going to go play college or university. It's really, really tough to do that. So when did it start to click for you?
It was mid-season of grade 10, to kind of mid to end of season of grade 10, when I started to realize like, okay, like this is what I want to do and I think I can. I started getting kind of like the visibility, but then people in the city started to kind of talk about me. And I started to like kind of excel. I was scoring a lot. I was one of the top point guards in the city. So that's kind of when I was like, okay, I'm kind of buckling down. This is what I'm going to do. And in grade 11, I kept telling the school and my coaches like, listen, we're going to go to OFSAA before I'm out of here. Like it's going to happen. Oh, let's just worry one game at a time. And Colonel By is not really looked at. I mean, we do have some sports that we excel at, but when anyone talks about Colonel By, it's obviously right away the IB program. So it's kind of like a smart school. It's not really a sports school.
I lost my grade 11 year to Colonel Bai in soccer in the
Oh, really?
finals. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we have people that come and are pretty solid, but like no one ever looks at us like when we talk about certain schools, like St. Pat's and other schools like that. Like you already know, like they're good at basketball, they're good at this, they're good at that. We're not really known for sports, but I mean we do have our sports where we definitely really kind of stand out compared to some other schools. But so yeah, after grade 10, it was kind of like the light bulb went off, and I just kind of grinded and grinded and grinded. And grade 11 came. I was what was grade 11? Grade 11 was we were decent. We weren't like really really good yet. I think we lost in the first round of the playoffs. But my grade 12 year, when I became like, I feel like my confidence was at an ultimate high just because of all the work I put in. Like coaches knew I would sneak into the gym.
Yeah.
Lunch, the recess bell rang. I was still like playing outside, late for class because I was still taking an extra like 20 shots.
The shorts
Like I
underneath
did
the pants.
all of it.
So you
Run to
were
the
ready to
change
go.
room, just to sweat off with paper towel.
People don't realize, like we were talking about this before, but I've said this before, but I don't remember going home right after school. Like it was just sports after sports, and you're going to different practices, you're going to the basketball court, and you don't see that as often now with outdoor courts. But back in the day, that's all we used to do. There wasn't any lights.
It was.
So what was a typical summer like for you? Like a day where you're playing basketball?
I would literally and I'm pretty sure I still have actually footage of it because I did record it because I always would want to watch myself after. But I would go to the court anywhere from between 7 a.m. to like 10. I try to get outside early in the day. And then like it was kind of hot during the mid of the day. So I'd come back inside, whether it was video games, whatever. But then I'd go back out in the evening around like 4 or 5 o'clock. And I wouldn't come back inside till like 9.
Yeah.
It was either playing by myself or we'd go to courts, play pickup. And we'd be literally playing till the light came on. And when the light came on, we knew we had to get home.
Exactly.
So
would you go around the city to play at different courts?
Always. I would be in Orleans. We'd go to the YMCA. I'd be going out to the West End, going to Algonquin, going to McNabb Community Center. Like all these little places, we always found ways to get in or find a way to play ball.
Exactly.
And that's all we did. And like when we were growing up, the bus system wasn't what it was like now.
There was no Uber or anything.
There was none of that. So taking a bus from Orleans to like Algonquin at the time, I would literally be on the bus for 2 hours.
Yeah. I can imagine.
So it was literally bus 2 hours there, play for an hour, to come back 2 hours.
And
I was doing
busing that long, you don't want to lose because
No.
you're gonna be sitting off for a while, so you got to get there early, call next.
No, it's crazy because like that's what we had to do to find basketball. It's not like today where there's so many programs and outlets for all these kids to go and play at any time.
Yeah, which we'll touch on
a little bit later. But it's what I did. Like I slept, I ate, I breathed, I did everything basketball. And by grade 12, I was like, listen, we're going to OFSAA this year.
Yeah.
Like we're going 100%. Because I knew that in order for me to get to university, I had to get some sort of exposure. And OFSAA was like at the time where all the coaches went. It's not like today where there's like so many leagues where coaches are going.
And you also mentioned, I think I've heard this somewhere, that you talked about how you made footage of yourself. Now it's kind of like everyone has a highlight tape. Everyone has a highlight tape. You can find the kid that covered Zion has his own highlight tape. You made your own highlight tapes, if I'm not mistaken, right? And this was what year?
Grade 10. I took a journalism class in school.
But what year? Do you remember the actual year?
2005, 2006.
Okay. So back then,
there's no YouTube. Nothing was there.
Yeah. You're talking 1.3 megapixel cameras on the cell phone. So
no, it was bad.
You were thinking outside the box.
Yeah. So because I wasn't able to play on competitive teams that traveled or got exposure, just because, again, it was hard for my mom to afford all that stuff as a single parent, I had to find ways to give my own self exposure. So we had a journalism assignment, and he said, you guys could do whatever you want. It has to be a video, and you're going to show it to the class.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought about it, how I thought about it, but the light bulb just went off, and I'm like, I'm going to record my games, and I'm going to make a highlight tape.
Nice.
That was what I did. So we could use the camera in the class. You just have to sign it out, and you can use it. So for all of our home games, I try to sign it out also for some away games when I was able to.
And just set it up yourself, or you would have someone?
Yeah, I'd get a friend. I asked my brother or somebody to come and record the games.
Nice.
So I got as many as I could. Obviously, I missed a bunch that I probably would have loved to have had, but I couldn't get some of them. And I made a highlight tape in my grade 11 year. Grade 11. I learned journalism in grade 10, filmed in grade 11. and put the tape together. I burned, I think, 25 or 30 DVDs at the time because there was no there was none of that stuff.
Yeah.
I took a piece of paper from Microsoft Word. I wrote all my stats, achievements, everything, put it in an envelope with the DVDs, and I mailed them out to every college and university in Canada.
And that was just your idea, or
My idea.
Okay, it's very intuitive and creative. So you talked about going to OFSAA. So let us know. Did you guys go to OFSAA that year? Kind of give us your last impression, then we'll kind of touch on how those highlight reels kind of got you to the next level of playing university.
Yeah, so grade 12, I knew we had a good team, but my mindset was like already kind of locked in on after high school. Like I'm like, I have to play university.
Yeah.
And the whole year I kept preaching it. You know how they say like speak it into existence. It's like literally what I did from the beginning of the year. I'm like, we're going to OFSAA. We went undefeated all season, 13-0. Got to the finals against St. Pat's, and a game where we should have won. We beat them earlier in the season as well. Our post player fouled out. I didn't actually have a good game myself. That's probably one of my worst games all season, and it happened to be.
I'm assuming.
It was at Carleton, yeah, finals. And we lost the game, but the way it was set up was whoever won got to select where they wanted to go. And at the time, there's AAA and quadruple A. And St. Pat's had to go to AAA. We went to Quad A.
Where'd you guys go? Which city?
We went to Toronto.
Okay.
So we get there, we get our schedule, and it's everything that every kid would have wished for at high school.
I went in 2004. It's
unreal.
There's a banquet at the beginning.
Banquet, food, everything.
It was nice. I went in 2004 to Guelph, and we had won. I went to St. Pat's, and we had won the championship. We went to Quad A. Yeah, you're right, man. It's number one, the size of people.
Yeah.
We had a quick team, but I remember remembering the teams from Toronto. They were just huge, man. I remember we played one team from Chatham the first game, and we lost at the end of the game. But tell me about that experience. And I know you probably played tournaments where you're playing against teams from Toronto, but like, what was that experience of OFSAA like? And how did that kind of motivate you to get to that next level?
Well, first, when you walk in, you almost feel like, it's just like you're like not a celebrity, but you feel like, whoa,
you stick out your
like
chest.
You're here. Bit. Whoa, this is crazy. Like you see every school sitting at their own tables, and you're trying to figure out like who's the team you're playing. Everyone's in the dress shirt or the little tie. Food's coming out. There's awards being given out and stuff like that. And then you get to the games, and when you get to the games the next day after the banquet, you start to see all the colleges and universities there and their school colors and their gear, and you start to know like kids are getting recruited. So right away for me, I was like, this is like the biggest kind of stage I've played in yet. So I'm like, it's this or done, So my year, I remember, so we played against Pickering, who had at the time Corey Joseph, who now has been in the NBA for numerous amount of years. We played against some named guys now that are playing professionally. DeVoe Joseph, Corey's brother, was also on the team. Alwyn Bigby, a bunch of guys that ended up going Division I and playing either NBA or playing professionally, and some of them are still playing right now. To kind of get that first look to see what the next level is and what D1 really is and stuff like that, it's definitely eye-opening. But it was an amazing exposure. It was amazing experience. I still remember like it was yesterday.
Yeah, man, I still got that shirt.
I have my things in my room and everything, But no, every kid, wants to get there, and it's an experience that, you'll cherish regardless of how you like the outcome. I mean,
man, I just told you, I graduated in 2004, so it's been 18 years since, and I still remember it, right? Yeah. So you go to OFSAA. I'm sure you heard it your whole high school. You're too small. Your size is not going to be an advantage. So how did you get to Bishops? Like, how did that come about? Yeah, so again, in grade 12, I ended up making a highlight tape after the season. And I started getting kind of like interest from Ottawa U here locally, Carleton a little bit, Algonquin, St. Lawrence College, kind of like just surrounding areas. But I knew I didn't want to stay here in Ottawa. Yeah. My friend at the time, who you know as well, Jeremy, Bishops University was recruiting him. I never heard of Bishops. I didn't know what it was, who it was. Yeah. And him and I kind of pushed each other since like grade 6 playing basketball. Grade 8. So we know each other since like we were kids, and we kind of like help motivate one another, work together, whatever it was. And he's like, "Yo, listen, I'm probably gonna go to Bishops. Like, come." I was like, "What do you mean, come to Bishops?"
So they had a recruiting trip, and he told the coach, like, my friend, is still trying to find university to play at and stuff like that, and can he come up for a recruiting visit? So I came. I did very well. The coach, like, right away was like, you know what, we'll take you. Like, we like you. I was deciding, debating with my mom, do I want to go there? Like, what's going on?
Where is it located?
Sherbrooke, Quebec. So it's not too far from Ottawa. It's about 3.5 hours, 4 hour drive.
Yeah.
So I knew I could come home kind of at any time if I needed to or anything else like that. It was good also to be away. I knew I wanted to be away from home. And then to have my best friend going to the same school at the same time too was another kind of a check mark off the list too, right? Like, both of us get to play ball and be at school together. Like, what else do you want?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure that that university experience was amazing. So let's talk a bit about that. I don't want to keep talking about your size because it's irrelevant. Anyone who's seen you play knows you can ball, know you can shoot. So what was it like? What was your that first moment where you're like, man, this is a lot tougher than I thought it was? Or, that first practice where I'm sure the speed of the game was much further, the IQ, like, what was that moment where you're like, okay, I made it, but at the same time, this is another level?
Yeah, it was like literally within like a couple practices where you start to realize that, yeah, you have skill. You're obviously there for a reason. Like, you can hoop, but it's the IQ part of it and the intensity part of it that kind of is more of the eye opening. Like, I've always been someone to work hard and stuff like that too. So it's not really the work that was hard. It's just the intensity of everything and the demand of everything that needed to be kind of elevated. And then on top of that, you throw in school. Yeah. And I've never really liked school. Like, I did school because you had to do school. And that was kind of the big eye-opener for me. And I struggled with it my first year, especially school-wise. Like, because I was a rookie, I knew I had to do more work than the average guy on the team to just even get any playing time. So, like, did I skip classes? Yes. Was I showing up late to classes? Yes. Homework was late. Like, I did whatever. Like, I was just in the gym all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not until my end of my first semester, kind of beginning my second semester, coaches told me, like, listen, your marks are almost like failing. Like, you're going to be on academic probation. And if you don't get them back up, you can't come back to school. So
it's not like the U.S. where they're making exceptions.
So it's kind of there where I was like, holy, like, the amount of effort I'm putting in here, I actually have to put in here, or I'm going to be kicked out of school. So that summer, I ended up staying at school. I took some spring classes and some summer classes to kind of bump on my marks, but also stay at school to train. But it was
were you working at all? Like, how were you?
No, nothing. I was taking OSAP at the time.
Okay.
So
what was that like? I mean, I know you talked about, your mom having that conversation, but what it's like, I mean, I don't know your family's financial situation at the time, but you made it seem like, you talked about how your mom was a single mother. Like, what was that conversation like? Did the money come up about, when you were about to move? Was that in the decision? Like,
yeah, for sure. My mom was like, well, are they going to give you scholarship? Like, what's going on there in terms of your money and stuff like that? And I mean, OSAP, the way OSAP works is depending on your parents' income, they give you a certain amount of money. And because my mom was making X amount, single family, whatever, I was able to get a lot. And the way it's set up is that it's like you owe some and then some is grant. Yeah. So based on the amount that we were getting, I was able to go. My mom always told me, like, you're going to have to pay it back eventually. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I ended up still going. But the money definitely did came up. But because, OSAP was covering whatever, it was kind of more now on me. Because later on, she's not paying, I'm paying it.
Exactly. So you talked about working your way up. What year did it, in your career with Bishops, that you started getting legit playing time, started making a name for yourself?
It's funny enough, I never really, like, only only close people know this and people who were around. Like, I never really had that great of a university experience. Okay. I bumped heads with the coach. I wasn't really recruited by him. Like, when I got there, it was like, there was always kind of how do I say it?
Like a weird dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. And it never left. It was there my whole duration of time. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't want to go drag it on too long. So my first year, I didn't play all preseason, nothing. No CJEP games, exhibition, nothing. Our first tournament's coming to Ottawa. And I'm like, oh my God, my whole high school's coming, my family's coming, my friends are coming, everybody's coming. And he kept telling me, he's like, listen, I know you're going back home. I know you're excited, blah, blah. I'll do my best to get you in. Like, whatever, man. Yeah. I already heard this story.
Role? Did you know your role at that time? Or?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm a rookie, and I'm like, yo, I can hoop. And And when we're playing pickup at practice and doing things, like I'm actually handling like some of the guys.
So this is your first time understanding the politics of sports?
Of sports.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get there and I'm like, okay. So we're in Ottawa and my coach, we're playing Carleton first game, down 50 with about 5 minutes left in the game. Hey, you're going in. I'm like, oh, snap. At this point, I'm like, I'm not mad, but I'm like, like garbage time, whatever it is. I go in.
First time I'm sure in your career you felt that.
Go in. I hit 3 back-to-back threes. 9 points. Third leading scorer in like 3 minutes. Something, whatever it was. So I'm feeling good. Family's there. Everybody's there. And all of a sudden, things kind of started to change in the positive kind of limelight. We play Saskatchewan the next day. I get in the second quarter for like 45 seconds a minute. I'm like, ooh, it's early. Feeling a little bit good. But I'm like, well, 1 minute, whatever. Yeah. Didn't play me the rest of the game. I'm like, what the hell? Third game, we play UPI, and Manok is on that. I don't know if you know Manok. Yeah. So he's playing for UPI at the time as well. Our point guard goes down second quarter with about 3 minutes left. So I get in. I play the final 3 minutes before the half. So now I'm sitting there. I'm like, is this guy going to go back in? Like, what's going on? I'm thinking in my head, like, I got to be ready.
Yeah.
He can't go back in the rest of the game. So I play the whole entire second half.
Nice.
I finished with 15 points. Like, obviously my best game as a university player. And go back to the change room, coaches applauding me, all this other stuff. And to me, I was mixed emotion. I took it kind of insulting.
Because, yeah, you knew you had it.
And yeah, it's not like I can't play basketball. Like, I'm here for a reason.
Exactly.
So kind of applauding.
That's what people don't understand. You can be in grade 9 and you think, I'm going to go play university.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No, it's not.
Whether it's Canadian, whether it's
not.
U.S., it's not easy to play at the next level.
It's not. So, I mean, things started to go well after that for a little bit. I got injured for a little bit. I went back down kind of in the rotation, stuff like that. But after that, it was never really the same. And it's not until my end of my university career that I kind of found out why he treated me the way he did. And I was like, not sad about it. I'm like, I don't know why you would ever treat someone negatively based on somebody else treating you negatively when there's my relationship with you can be amazing. If I treat, your friend wrong, our relationship is still good. Like, why do you got to treat me wrong? Yeah. Right. So,
especially at a younger age to understand that dynamic.
Nothing. And it's like, at least be a man, talk to me about it. So at least we can address the situation. So it's like not until the end of my university career that I found out what the reason was. And, he told me at the end of the year, like, I've never met anybody as tough as you, like mentally, like if anybody went through what I went through for the duration of time, either you would have quit, you would have transferred schools already and never gone through what I did. But I mean, it builds and it taught me a lot of things. I got into fitness. I got into other things that like, I don't think I ever would have. And I would never change what had happened because it made me who I am now. So, I mean, I'm thankful for it, but obviously in the time when you're there, you're like, what am I doing? Do I want to play basketball anymore? I thought about quitting. Yeah. And to quit something you love, you did for so long, I was like, yo, what's going on?
So that university team, what was the best? I think you guys went to nationals, right?
My 5th year. So we had 7 of us that were like in year 5.
Okay.
We had 3 guys that were over 6'10", or 6'9", 6'10", 6'11".
Which is big.
Yeah. Especially in Canadian basketball, to have 3 guys like that. And then we had, 4 or 5 of us guards that were solid. So we won our we actually played pretty bad. Like, despite our team, there was a lot of kind of like ups and downs throughout the season. We only finished in our conference 8-8.
So you didn't play to your full potential, essentially.
No, we did not. But we started peaking at the right time. Like, as soon as playoffs came, and it's, one and done. It's not like it's a series and playoffs. So we won semifinals, finals, made it to nationals. And I think to date, we played Ottawa U. We were ranked 6th. They were ranked 3rd or 2nd at the time.
Who was on Ottawa U at that time?
Johnny Brahane, Mike Lafricane.
So very solid team. Is that the year they won the OUAs? Or?
I think that was the year they won the cup, the Wilson Cup or whatever it was. But it was the most watched game online.
Oh, nice.
By anybody. Like, we were up we were up pretty much back and forth, going up. With like maybe 30 seconds left, we were up. Some foolishness happens. They steal the ball, tie the game. We go to overtime. And we end up losing in overtime. Play Windsor the next day. But till now, we all, still talk, all of my university.
So let's touch on that. So your team, aside from basketball, what was your would you say was your chemistry? Was it your? I know you said you didn't click or you didn't get to your full potential, but I'm assuming you guys had a crazy, competitive drive. And what was like the brotherhood like in the locker room for that team? Was it a special team in that sense? You guys still keep in contact till now?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of us clicked. A lot of us played together. Me, Pat, Jonah, Majid. I mean, the core of us played together for almost 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And then we had a guy transfer over from Concordia who was all Canadian at the time too, Kyle Desmarais, who's also another solid pickup for our team too. So I mean, in terms of talent, we were there. It was just kind of like meshing it all together, and I won't get into like too much details, but like, we had up and down. I mean, we definitely, I think, underachieved at times, but I mean, I think we also peaked at the right time as well. So I mean, to me, I still think that we could have made it to the finals, and then Carleton won at that year. Yeah. We ended up playing them back in October in BC, and they only beat us by a couple points too. And I think we were 10 times better than we were at the end of the year than in October. And I think based on like mismatches and stuff we had, I think we could have gave them a run that year. And that's, I mean, my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an amazing experience. Let's talk about what's next. I mean, you touched on earlier that you had some Lebanese background. So for people who don't know, you played professionally. So what was the gap between graduating and then going pro, and what were you doing in between? Like, how did that opportunity come about? Let's talk a little bit about that.
So again, I made a university highlight tape again, and throughout my university career,
you got to thank that journalist teacher.
Oh man, it's crazy. So I made a highlight tape, but throughout my university career, I was always getting messaged by Lebanese agents.
Yeah, they look for the last name.
And for the first 2-3 years, I was never answering because I'm like, who are these weirdos?
Yeah.
But it's not until like my my third or fourth year where I'm like, I finally responded to one of them, Jad Saad. I don't know if you know him. Like, he's one of the bigger agents in Lebanon. And started talking to me like, where are you from, blah, blah. I see your name. Are you, do you have your passport, this and that? I'm like, at that time, like, I don't have any of that stuff. Like, my dad never went back and got us our papers or anything. So he's like, listen, work on that stuff and, message me back. I think I have an opportunity for you here in Lebanon if you'd like to play. And I wasn't sure if this guy's fake. So I had to ask people around, and you could check on FIBA website, and he was registered. I saw all the players. So then I was like, maybe I can, there's an opportunity here. So I made my tapes. I sent it to a couple agents in Lebanon, and they all said the same thing. We need your papers. You need your papers. Yeah. And then the final guy that I got, Eli Khouri, who's like, listen, come to Lebanon. I'll fly you out here, and we'll get you on a team, and we'll work to get you your papers while you're here. The only guy that said, just get out here.
It's a good sales pitch.
I got out there. I worked out with Tadamon. I worked out with Biblos. I worked out with Hoops. I worked out with Sajas. And so I finished school 2015. I started doing my personal training with Merrick Palmer Capital Courts. And it was by end of like November when I flew out to Lebanon. So within 3 months of being done about 5 months from being done from school that I went down to Lebanon. And I was like, listen, I'm packing like I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
Like I'm getting a contract when I'm there. There's no way.
I think that's when we connected.
Yeah,
I think you had reached out, and
my
brother was there at the time. So
yeah,
it's always good. I mean, I think I connected you with my brother, and maybe you had talked to him at the time. Mm-hmm. So you've never been to Lebanon?
Never.
We touched on this early. I mean, for me, I'm born and raised in Canada, but my parents are both Lebanese. I had the privilege of spending many summers, and then when my brother went, I spent many years. Lebanon's a beautiful country, but you're talking about many differences and lots of cultural differences. So what was your first impression about being in a different country and having to be a professional player where, if you don't perform, you're on the next plane out?
Yeah. So, I mean, my first kind of like, I guess, experience being there. I mean, like you said, we talked a little bit about it earlier. Driving was crazy. Yeah. I was a little nervous kind of getting into a car, seeing how everybody was driving. But, having that Lebanese kind of background and, growing up like that throughout my life, and I mean, the food and everything else. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say I was in heaven because I was like, oh my God, I get to eat this every single day. Like, this is amazing. But when you look at now, the reason I was being there as a professional athlete, like you said, within, one game, if you play bad, you're going home. Everyone thinks you're going to play a sport, you're on vacation, you're in another country, whatever, but you're there for work. You're there for business. Yeah. And that's how, you have to approach it. If you want to,
cutthroat business.
Yeah. If you want to succeed and you want to stay in it, you have to treat it like a business. The second you start treating it as an activity or for fun, that's when you're done. So, I mean, my regimen was always the same. I mean, like, I actually miss it, you know, waking up early. I always ate like super clean, training, working out. I got to the gym on my own, figured out what I had to do. And I was always kind of like just laser focused in terms of what I needed to do. So, I mean, when I got there, I ended up signing with Hoops my first year. And I was able to play all the preseason games before the season started because I didn't have my papers yet. And they already had 3 imports.
Okay.
So we played against Chanville, we played against Mutahed, and we played against, I forget who it was. But all 4 preseason games, I did unbelievable. I was like 14 points, 17 points, played against Riyadi, against your brother. Yeah. I had like 15. Like I was playing really well. Everybody's like, oh my God, who's this guy? The next Ali Mahmoud coming from Canada, you know, blah, blah, blah. And at the time, I didn't know your brother like I know him now. Yeah. So I started looking him up. I'm like, what, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Like, what's going on here?
That's the thing is when you're coming from overseas, they automatically expect it's kind of like a bump to your resume when you're coming from the States. And a lot of guys who come from the States don't end up doing much. But yeah, it's a, you know, we had a whole podcast with my brother. It's a very high level league. And it's a very cutthroat league. So let's talk about that. Were you planting the seeds for your career after basketball at this point? Like, I know you talked about personal training, but you spent 2 years in Lebanon, right? At what point did you know, like, okay, number one, this is not going to last, or, you know, you got to start thinking financially or plant, like, you know, the next steps? Mm-hmm. Talk us through that.
So after every, you know, season, you come back home and then I go back to work. I always kind of like evaluated. I'm like, man, that wasn't what I thought it was. Yeah. Or, man, money was late this month. Do I want to do that again? Waiting for your money, like all those little things kind of left a kind of a sour taste in my mouth for a little bit. But every time I came back, I was going back to, you know, work and training. Yeah. And then I started my first business in 2016, which is my media company, my sports media.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You talked about making the highlight tapes.
Yeah, so I mean, I started a company called Next Level Media after my first year of playing in Lebanon. I came back, and the whole basis of my company was to help athletes get exposure. So essentially what I did for myself from high school to university, from university to playing professionally, I'm like, it clearly worked for me. Yeah. There's probably another 1,000 kids who are in my shoes that are literally needing just that exposure to make it to the next level. So when I came home, I was playing men's league and stuff at Algonquin, and I'd see kids like, you know, I'm like, why are you here? Like, this kid's solid. Like, why are you not playing somewhere else or university? Oh, nobody saw me or this and that and that. So again, a light bulb went off, and I'm like, I got to start something. Yeah. So I went from kind of like, you know, sports media to kind of now I do all sorts of media, but it was to help athletes get exposure. We create kind of like a profile for you, whether it's highlight tape, come to your game, stuff like that. And I kind of help package it up for you that we can kind of send out to coaches and get you that exposure that you're missing. Again, there was no guarantees, but you know, it's an opportunity. And now, I mean, obviously Instagram and all that stuff is really propelling that and pushing that for everybody. But, did that, and then within that, I started my own media camp, my exposure camp. Okay. And that's kind of where things started to kind of propel the company, because what I did now, instead of kids going out to find the coaches, I brought the coaches into the kids. So my first year, we had 3 kids get recruited from my camp. So the way it was structured, it's 3 days. 2 days is kind of like skills. I get coaches to come in, talk about the programs, get to see the kids as well. My first year, we had Red Bull on board. We had Muscle Milk. Rogers TV came out. We did it at La Cité.
You were doing all the footwork and making the calls. That's awesome.
So did all that, and it was on TV. Got the kids opportunity. We had only 4 schools come out to watch. Ottawa U, I think, came out. Algonquin. It was kind of just local. Yeah. And then we got 3 kids recruited. And then my second year, we were able to get 5 kids recruited. And I went from 3 schools to 7. Nice. So then I was like, okay, we're picking up some ground here, some traction. Again, more sponsors came on board and stuff like that too. And then my third year, we were able to get 4 kids recruited, but we had 17 schools come out. Wow. And then obviously COVID came now, and I haven't been able to do it since. But I mean, things have just been picking up.
Yeah, so you do training as well, but I want to talk about, you know, you basically essentially started your own basketball team, Team Believe. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about that, how the reason why you did it. You know, has there been any success stories? Like, talk about that. You know, I'm sure you played club ball, so what was the reason behind starting Team Believe?
I wanted another outlet for kids. I mean, basketball has grown tremendously, and it's kind of been the same structure in Ottawa for so many years. And with the amount of kids, first of all, the population in Ottawa has grown tremendously. Yeah. Basketball has grown. So you need more to suffice for all the kids wanting to play. So with no programs and more kids getting cut daily, it's like, where are these kids going? Yeah. So I wanted to start a program that was elite enough to help them in multiple aspects. So it's almost like a prep team, but for like a third of the cost. And
what's the age groups?
So right now I have 2 teams, a U19 team and a U17 team.
Okay.
So I have kids in here from like 15 all the way to turning 19.
So how did you get kids? I mean, how did you find kids to join the program?
I mean, so because I've been doing training in Ottawa for so long, I mean, in camps and clinics and stuff, kids obviously started to know who I was in the city. But as soon as you kind of start posting things, I mean, Facebook and things like that, kids share everything, and you tell a kid, that kid posts it, tells friends and stuff like that. So initially when I first started the program, I wanted to do just a U19 team. That's it. I had 78 kids come out to the tryouts at Ottawa U. I don't know what it was, what hit me, what it was. I'm like, I have to do 2 teams. I can't do 1 team. Yeah. And that's me just announcing U19. So imagine if I had announced U17 and U19, I probably would have had like 150 kids come to the tryouts. And with me, I'm very big like in social media. And as we started announcing and starting our Instagram page, I started announcing the coaches. Under Armour was on board and all these things too. So kids started obviously being attracted to all of that stuff. And it kind of just grew from there. And I mean, we have 2 teams now. Our first initial season was cut short because of COVID. Yeah. But I mean, I was able to get, of our 11 rostered guys, 9 guys into schools.
So you talked about some of the requirements of playing on the team. Let's talk about that, because sports, like you talked about earlier with your university experience of grades, people just think that, hey, I'm going to be good at basketball and I'll get to go somewhere. So what are the requirements and the unique sets that you've done that other teams don't do? Yeah, so
regardless of how good you are, I mean, if you don't keep up with the mandates that we have, you can't play. So the first thing is you need to have a 72% average or higher. Okay. And the reason I did that is because in Canada, you can go to any school and take a Bachelor of Arts with a 72% average. Okay. That's the bare minimum to get in. Yeah. 80 and above, obviously, you can get scholarships and stuff like that too. But my whole vision and goal is that I want to try to get as many guys on our roster recruited by the time they're U19. Yeah. And the worst feeling would be is to be recruited by a couple schools even, and they ask for your marks and you can't get in. That's the worst feeling. So I'm like, okay, we want to set them up before that happens. So when a school does ask what's his marks, he can get in and there's no issues. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that every kid needs to do 20 hours of volunteer work. And we do that sometimes collectively as a team, or that has to be done individually. And the reason for that is that I want these kids to also be, men after basketball, have tools to work later on, because the ball eventually is going to stop, you know. And especially in today's society, we're all so engaged in our phones and social media, and never really, have face-to-face conversations anymore.
Which is a huge skill set.
So it's all about texting now and, phone and stuff like that too. So by us getting out there, doing volunteer work and stuff like that too, I want these kids to be put in kind of a work environment where they're amongst people that they don't know, and kind of break that barrier of, being shy or, saying please, shaking somebody's hand, looking them in the eye, things like that, we kind of take for granted that people don't really, kind of teach anymore, I would say. So
yeah, it's a lost skill for sure. It's a lost skill. So what's your vision of, you talked about earlier about having your own gym. What's your vision of Believe? Like what are you planning to do with this?
I'd love to have more age groups as kind of the years go on. But in order to do that, you need gym space and stuff like that too. So that's another factor we're kind of trying to work around. But my whole goal is, the fact that I've been able to play overseas, but also travel overseas doing other, camps, clinics and stuff like that. I'm trying to model. I try to take bits and pieces of things that I've learned.
Quick name drops. What were those camps that you've worked on?
Yeah, so I went to Chad. It's called Sahel Basketball. I went to Gabon. And then I also went to Senegal Seed Project, where there's a lot of NBA coaches, scouts, trainers, and everything else like that they run kind of annually, coincide with Basketball Without Borders and stuff like that.
And you also coach with Ottawa Blackjacks as well. So correct. how do you find time to do all this, man? I mean, I'm assuming.
I love basketball.
Yeah, that was my point, right? Like, as someone who, like, I mean, I love basketball too. I would have loved to continue to play. God blessed me with a lot of things. He didn't bless me with height and some good health, but I would have loved to find a career in basketball. So I'm not going to say I'm jealous of you, but it's great that you're still doing it. So is it the money? Is it the love? Like, what keeps you going?
It's definitely not the money. The money comes and goes. I mean, it's great when you can get it, but there's a lot of things that, I mean, I've done, voluntarily and stuff like that too. So it's definitely the love of the game. But for me, I don't know what it is or why I have that within me, but it's like, I wish I had that or had these things growing up.
Yeah.
And Ottawa's always been neglected in terms of the basketball scene. It's always been about, Toronto is the heart of basketball and everything's about Toronto or the other cities. And growing up, Ottawa's always had talent. Like we've at the competitive level, especially, we've always medaled. We've gone to provincials. We've done a lot of things, and we still don't get any love.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I wanted to, whether I had to put it all on my back or whatever I had to do, I wanted to kind of, push us more to the limelight. And again, we have 2 universities here that are top 5 every single year.
Yeah.
And Carleton has won like 14 or whatever it is out of the last 17 years.
Exactly.
And we still don't get no recognition for anybody coming to Ottawa, right? So, just kind of trying to push that limelight for these kids is kind of.
And I think it also helps that you can lace them up and beat these kids.
Yeah.
So it helps that coach.
No, that definitely helps. And I mean, kids have actually vocalized that too. When you can kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? When you can like resonate yourself with somebody else and you can kind of see yourself with someone, you not only want to listen to them more, but there's kind of like a
respect factor.
The respect, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, not taking anything away from, a parent that's stepping into coach or anything else like that, because that's definitely needed. And, I respect every single one because without them, we wouldn't have so many teams. But, a 15-year-old kid who's looking to play at the next level has a 55-year-old dad who hasn't played for the last 30 years. Yeah, you're going to respect them and see that there, but it's not going to be the same as a guy who just finished playing 2 years ago, and just a pro and stuff like exactly. Yeah. So that kind of immediate, information that you can give a kid and them kind of see it. And then when you play against them too, they're like, okay, coach can hoop.
Yeah, exactly. And
so it's like,
it's good. I wanted to highlight that. I wanted to highlight your, I guess, what you've given back. And it's very, there's a respect factor with that, right? Like, for you to put in the hours, to give back, you see it on social media, you just, training younger kids, whether it be boys or girls, right? You're always giving back, and it's something awesome. So let's talk about some of the collabs, because you talked about social media. You've had collabs with Gillette. I don't know if you're sponsored by Under Armour, but you're always posting free stuff from Under Armour. NFL Canada, you talked about you got something coming up with Super Bowl, NBA, I think with the Raptors and whatnot. Talk a bit about that. We don't have much time, but let's talk a bit about that and what to expect for you moving forward. What do you expect the career of Jameel? I've had conversations with people. Is Jameel going to be, a player development guy with, is he going to move up the ranks from, Blackjacks, go to possibly the G League? Like what's your goal? And I mean, it's a big question talking about collabs and your goal, but try to sum it up for me, man.
To be honest, I don't want to say I go with the flow of things, but I think I definitely would love to see where it goes. I mean, I'm content with what I'm doing now. Opportunities always pass us by every day. And I mean, it's up to us to kind of, whether we say yes or no and, go on with our stuff. But I mean, I've always said that obviously, to be in the NBA would be a dream come true. Yeah. Obviously, I would have wanted to play there, but I mean, there's so many now being, on the other side of the fence, there's so many other jobs that, can still encompass you being in the NBA. So if I could be a player development coach in the NBA or, anything like that, or even be training guys that are affiliated in the NBA and stuff like that too, that'd be an amazing goal of mine. But for me, more than anything, I think to like build a platform here in the city that I grew up in that, kind of helped me get to where I am would be probably the most gratifying thing. So like having a facility, like that's kind of the biggest thing that I want to get here in Ottawa because we don't have one. Yeah. And, everyone finds it hard to play basketball in the city. You might get half an hour here, an hour here, or whatever it is. So to be able to put a facility here, you just said like within the next 5 years or so it is, like that would be my next biggest goal. Like regardless of if NBA called me tomorrow and says, come and train with the Raptors or whatever it is, building a facility here and a foundation for these kids to kind of push through and grow through would probably be a more gratifying feeling than
Nice.
than
That's admirable. But let's talk about those collabs too. I mean, I'm always seeing you post stuff. Like I talked NFL, Under Armour. Do you see more of that coming along, or that's just coming natural with just your presence online?
Yeah, so I mean, it's two things. I mean, like my consistency online, I think, has definitely helped. I've always kept the same message, the same kind of posting, and I mean, with how social media is now, it's so driven, right? And I mean, there's influencers and so many different things like that, and company use them to kind of push their products or their message along. And I mean, Under Armour started back in 2018, December. I got a random message. I saw one of my friends actually at Under Armour camp or something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how'd you get that gig? And then he told me like, yo, I could hook you up for the next one or whatever it is. And I was like, okay, cool. So I got in touch with the guy who organized the event. It was the launch of the Steph Curry Sixes.
Okay.
His trainer came down. The guy who created the shoe came down, and they invited 20 other influencers, shoe influencers. And I think there's only like 3 trainers, myself and 2 other guys from Toronto. I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was just going to be like that event, and then, that's it.
Yeah.
So they hooked us up with gear, everything. And then for the next release of his next like 6 colorways of that shoe, I kept getting that in the mail.
Nice.
And then with how I was like they never asked me to post. They never asked me to do anything. I was posting it on social media like, yo, guys, buy now, like whatever.
Yeah.
So kind of grew from there. And they saw how much kind of like I was pulling and what I was actually doing without them asking me, that it kind of started to grow from there. And now, I'm kind of affiliated with them where they, they help me with my basketball camps. They help with my Belief program. We get discounted gear. They hook us up they've literally propelled my basketball programs with
Nice.
with the stuff that they're helping me with. And then Gillette just came kind of knocking on the door randomly. That was awesome. I kind of get emails from random companies here and there, but I say no to a bunch of things because I just can't post them on my social media or I'm not really interested in. But I mean, it's fun. It's cool networking because you meet so many different people doing the social media stuff. And it's kind of more of like a side thing more than, it's not my focus. I don't go like looking for gigs.
Yeah, you don't have time for that anyways with all the basketball.
And then the NFL Canada thing, same thing. And I mean, I did something with them earlier in the year at the beginning of the season, and now they want me to do something for the Super Bowl next week too. So it's been pretty cool. So I don't know where these are gonna go, but
hey man,
they're
have fun with it. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
I told you earlier. I mean, we talked about this, the goal of this podcast. So I'm gonna ask you a question. I'm asking all people. So it's a 2-part question. If you can go back to your younger self and give yourself some advice as an athlete, what would that be?
Take care of my body more. I know growing up, you hear things, but you don't know what's true and what's not, especially with weightlifting and training like that. I never touched weights. I never did any of that stuff. If I was the same size playing basketball today, no one would ever look at me. I was 153 pounds going to my first year university at 5'10" if I eat my breakfast. So
Right
I mean,
shoes.
nah, I know exactly.
5'11" in Tim's.
So I mean, I would definitely tell my younger self to definitely train differently.
Okay.
That probably would have gave me a who knows, a different opportunity just based on strength, speed, other things that I probably didn't have. But I don't know, for the most part, I was pretty determined. I was pretty goal driven. So I don't think I would really I think that would probably be the biggest component, is just taking care of my body better, resting, learning how to work out. Because I don't think kids neglect that even still today with all the information that is still out there. Eating healthy and all that stuff. No one thinks it affects them, but it does.
Definitely. I don't know if you heard the podcast. There was a clip that I just heard from Kendrick Perkins. He was talking about how he played 1 year AAU with LeBron James, and I think LeBron was like 16. So he was talking about how they would play multiple games, and then some of the teammates would go to Wendy's or whatever, and LeBron had a bag full of chopped up fruit. And he was saying that LeBron James, at the age of 16, was focusing on his food, and while everyone was eating McDonald's and stuff. So it's I mean, for sure, it's longevity, especially someone who's had. I've had 3 knee surgeries, right? It's taking care of your body, stretching and whatnot. So it definitely makes sense. And then the second part of that question, I know you talked about your schooling and it wasn't something of focus to you, and you kind of had to, give yourself a nudge in university to kind of get back at. What would you talk about in school wise? What would some advice be for your younger self?
buckle down in school. If there's what I've always said, I don't have any regrets, but if there is one regret in my whole entire life, I would say it would be not focusing all my attention on school, because I probably closed a lot of doors. And I think I also made it a little bit more complicated in university for myself, not being kind of attentive to my schoolwork and taking it more seriously. So I would definitely tell my younger self, like, wake up and do it, because it not only sets you up while you're there, because the way it works is like when one thing starts to do bad, even though like, you know, you want to play basketball and you're focusing on that, your mind is also on school because you know you have to get it done. So now I'm like thinking, I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. So now it takes away from this and takes away from that. So when things are all going well, you can also play at a better level too. So I mean, it goes hand in hand. So that's probably what I'll tell my younger self.
Perfect. Listen, Jameel, this was fun, man. I enjoyed our conversation. I mean, we've known each other for a couple of years. We played in the men's league together, but it's good to find your story. I mean, I've heard a bunch of interviews, but I'm glad you're able to share some time. It's always good to see people that you know succeed. So I'm always, you know, when I saw the news about the Blackjacks, you know, you a smile on your face. When I see those collabs, it's also,
I appreciate it.
I think we need more positive and more, in the day and age of haters, man, it's good to get recognition. So I wanna recognize someone like you, and this is the reason why we did this. Tell your story and recognize it, and hopefully, you know, the younger Jameel, that's you know in grade 8, grade 9 listens to this and gets some motivation to keep on hooping.
No, I appreciate it, and I mean, you know, like you said, I mean, everyone has a story, and I think that it's important that everyone tells their story at some point.
Yeah.
Because you know it takes one kid to listen to that story, or one person, and then something resonates with them, that can, you know, change their whole direction, and you never know where that goes, right? So
for sure. Any shout outs you want to give? Any mentors that you had, coaches or anything? I know you talked about your
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's just different people throughout my whole life. I mean, I thank all of them. I mean, my mom, Merrick, my university coach, even though we bumped heads, I mean, you know, I kind of now, when I look back now, just being the mature self I am now and the older Jameel, you know, I'm thankful for all that stuff that I went through, because it made me who I am now. And like you said, like, how do I find time to do all the stuff that I do? It's because like I'm just locked in, and like going through all that university stuff, I kind of had to like lock into what I want. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the people that have been there for me since day one, my, you know, close friends, my brothers and stuff like that too. So, I mean,
awesome.
Yeah.
Glad we made time for that, but no, appreciate it. So stay tuned, everyone. We got a good series coming. We're like I said, we're trying to highlight a bunch of athletes, whether they went professional, like Jameel's case, but we're going to be talking to other people who use their skill set to really, you know, advance in their careers. So stay tuned, and thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day, good night, whenever time you listen at this, and be sure to share it, subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for our next episode. So take care, guys.